This is Beyond the Moon, a Ditch Witch podcast where we dig deep into news, job site stories, Ditch Witch culture, and all the other dirt that makes up the industry.
Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Beyond the Moon. I am Sean Hubbard, and I will be the host today, joined by Mr. Corey Maker. How are you, Corey?
Fantastic.
Good. You are fantastic. Some of you may recognize Corey from his first appearance on Beyond the Moon is season 1. I think it was the, third or fourth maybe episode that came out.
Yep.
Yeah, we went down some little rabbit holes and got into some stories, and we did talk a little bit of work. Corey's a manager of product management for Subsite, so we talked about a little bit of that and what that means.
You got it right this time.
I know, I butchered it the entire episode in season 1. But because of some of the stuff that we talked about, not necessarily related to work, Corey was contacted about trying to come back on and tell some more stories. Corey gets to travel a lot. He's been all over the world, all over the country, seen some interesting stuff. So that's what we're going to do today is just sit down. We're going to gather around the campfire, kids, and we've got another Corey story. So what do we want to talk about?
Yeah.
It's like an open mic day.
Yeah, it's like the saga of Joe Dirt.
Yeah.
Joe Dirt. No, after that launched, a lot of feedback. I reposted it on LinkedIn and had like a 27,000% increase on impressions.
Yeah.
And
overnight celebrity.
A ton of people reaching out and talking about things and saying, man, you should have talked about this because this happened several years ago and we did this. And,
right.
In remote places in the world. And just, thinking through some of that, some of the experiences, being from a very small town, never thinking that I would ever get to experience something like that, right?
Right.
Coming from a town of 200 people and then being all over the world. But several things. I was sitting there thinking about this last night whenever I was thinking about all the things I could talk about.
Right.
And, just having some of those conversations, especially just getting back from Europe and talking to some of those guys about things that happened a decade ago. But so many random things, man, that just in this industry and the places you end up, it just blows my mind sometimes.
Yeah. What were you doing in Europe? We can start there.
Yeah. So we had gone over to the UK to go visit some of our customers and see some of that equipment and, end up at Buckingham Palace one day, just with stuff going on down in that part of our industry, right, with fiber going in and everywhere in part of the world. But things you didn't experience like as a child or what you think you would see as an adult even. And, a lot of the things, I just had this conversation the other day. Years ago, we ended up in Barrow, Alaska.
Barrow,
Alaska.
Where's that?
It's the furthest north point of Alaska.
Okay.
And oddly enough, we landed there and it was the Wiley Post Will Rogers Airport, which, we have both of those here in Oklahoma.
Right.
But I had no clue that's where they had actually crashed and died.
Oh,
that's why it was named after that up there. But we'd been out there seeing some equipment, and we get ready to go back to the airport, and it was me and Billy Keith from product support at the time. And we get to the airport, and our plane's delayed, and I'm like, what could delay this? And in this part of the world, what could be delayed?
Right.
And we get there, and there's a grizzly bear running around the parking lot. So oddly enough, we're from Oklahoma. We drive around, watch tornadoes and stuff, right?
Yeah.
So we just follow the bear around in the truck, and we watch him go through all the dumpsters and all of that stuff. That
was why it was delayed?
Yep. There was a bear in the parking lot, which oddly enough, we stayed at a man camp while we were up there. It's like the oil field.
Yeah.
And, you stay in this container almost shaped device that's supposed to be your hotel for the night, and you could lay in the bed, take a and take a shower at the same time. It was so small.
You didn't even have to move.
I mean, it was that small. And they had this bear sighting deal hanging up the whole week. And I'm like, okay, yeah, we're in Alaska. I'm sure there's bears everywhere.
Yeah.
Didn't expect to see one. But sure enough, in the parking lot, there it was. And we got delayed for
Was that your first grizzly bear?
Oh, it was. Yeah. I'd seen several black bears and stuff in Canada up there. And
we have black bears in Oklahoma.
We do. They're very remote.
Yeah. I held a little cub in a previous life. I worked for Oklahoma State University. And they're doing research on black bears in southeast Oklahoma.
Yeah.
And I got to go, I was going to say shoot mama bear, but I didn't shoot her. They put her to sleep so we could get the cubs out. So, yeah, I've held a 6-week-old little black bear before, but I don't think that would have delayed a flight.
Yeah, no, that was definitely a unique experience, man.
You said too. I like interrupting, so I'm going to do that. You said the phrase "man camp," and I'd never heard of that before. I didn't know what that was until my son, who is a lineman, he went this past, I guess it was this past summer, to North Carolina after that hurricane came through, and they stayed in a man camp. And I was like, "What is that?" He's like, "Well, it's like a container."
Yeah, it's exactly what it is.
Like a rolling hotel.
Yes, it is. And, it's an experience,
Yeah.
And, especially when you talk about like the oil field industry and what we do in that part of the oil pipeline stuff, you end up in a lot of those cases because you're in remote areas putting
Right.
stuff like that in. One of the more memorable times was in Williston, North Dakota. And at the time, it was very underdeveloped. And, we're doing a customer event there because there's so many people up there doing work, whether it was directional drills, vacuum excavation, all of that stuff. And I never thought that I would be in a place where we were trying to do customer presentations where the biggest place we could rent out was a bar.
Yeah.
And we actually took the Budweiser sign across the back, flipped it around so we could project on the back side of it about,
make do with what you got.
Talked about drill pipe maintenance and everything else.
Right.
So
Did you ever go anywhere fun? I mean, nothing wrong against Burrow, Alaska, or Williston, North Dakota, but do you go cool places?
Yeah, no,
Not
absolutely.
cool places. Do you go places that are bigger, that have bigger facilities?
No, absolutely. And I think, from trade shows and stuff like that, you get to go to a lot of these major cities that are set up to do things like that. And I think, seeing both sides of that too, whether it be, the numerous trade shows that are in Las Vegas, Orlando, and I think that's where we get to spend a lot of our time together in those situations,
Right.
especially as groups of people from the factory. It's really when you branch out and go out to some of those remote dealerships and the areas that they have to work in, you see a lot of really unique things.
That's where you're making memories.
That's for sure. The
Yeah.
experiences you'll never forget. Because a lot of those other, like the big nice places you're describing, right? You see them on TV and you see that. And
Right.
then, some of this other stuff you might see on ice road truckers or something.
Yeah.
But that was another one of the experiences that I had in relations to Canada. We had launched the ATJT60 in like 2014. And I ended up having to go up there because they do majority of their work's done in the wintertime when everything's frozen. Because a lot of those places they can't get to when everything's thawed out because it kind of turns into a marsh.
Right.
And
Sounds lovely.
I'll never forget. I flew up to Grand Prairie and we drove like 3 hours north of there up to where this machine was working. And it was like negative 55 degrees. And, we're out there trying to figure out what a problem was going on with that machine.
It's too cold.
Well, and, I'm from Oklahoma. You can buy all the cold weather stuff you want down here, but it doesn't work up there.
No,
it's
not
like a
quite the
different world. Yeah, no, it was completely different. And I remember we ended up staying at this hotel that was called the Sandman or something. And it was more like a motel because the doors were on the outside. And after I decided I didn't necessarily have frostbite, it was more like a sunburn whenever I took a shower.
Yeah.
I got out of there and I could tell the storm had picked up outside. It was snowing pretty bad. And I walked out of the bathroom and looked over at the entry door to my hotel room. And there was about an inch of snow building up that was blowing under the door.
I feel like there's a gap there.
Yes.
It got a little
Yes,
chilly.
it was high quality.
Well,
high quality.
you're really selling Ditch Witch and Subsite as a place that you'd want to come work. You can go stay in lovely motels in Alaska where it snows inside.
Yeah, no, it's definitely a blended mix. I think for every amazing place you get to go and enjoy, there's probably 9 others that were skeptical along the way.
A little desolate, maybe.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So how often do you go to, you mentioned Las Vegas. How often does Ditch Witch go, or do you go to all these trade shows? Like some of the bigger places, how often do you travel to those?
So, on a given year, I travel somewhere around 120 to 140 days a year.
Does your wife enjoy that?
It's one of those things. And I think that's something that has changed drastically is like having my daughter.
Right.
And seeing how much that's shifted over the years. And I will say, like, FaceTime is amazing technology.
Yeah.
Because I grew up with both parents traveling. And my dad
Just
being
writing letters?
Yeah, just like
postcards?
see you on Monday and
Right.
no real communication in between. So FaceTime's helped that a lot. And I mean, I'm sure you see this too with some of your travel. The technology, like the Game Changer app, where you can like log in and watch your kid's game real time as somebody in the stands is tracking everything. It's pretty amazing.
Have you ever been the guy that had to track it?
No, I just keep the manual book.
There you go.
It's more my speed. But
Yeah. No, that's hard to keep up with, the Game Changer stuff.
Yeah, no, it is. But no, like to your point, talking about going to some of those places, Con Expo is a big deal for us.
Right.
And we roll into Vegas every 3 years for that show and what it means. And, I've always joked about that trade show in Bauma in Germany, that those are the two that can take years off of your life, depending on how long you have to stay there.
Right.
It was like 2017 Con Expo. We had our sales conference in Orlando, and it rolled around that NUCA and Con Expo were both in Las Vegas. So I flew directly from Orlando after a week at sales conference, and you can imagine how those sales guys like to celebrate a year. But rolled into Las Vegas for a 14-day stint.
That's about 11 days too long.
It is absolutely way too long.
Yeah, last time I was in Vegas, it was for a trade show, and I remember. So part of my responsibilities are setting up interviews with different magazines and media outlets and stuff. And we had some interviews. I want to say at like 9 in the morning, and Corey wasn't involved in that, but there was a lot of slow moving.
Oh yeah,
people and some red faces, and not just all Ditch Witch stuff. I'm talking the reporters, and everybody was just like, "Okay, what are we doing?"
It's straight up The Walking Dead until about noon, and people start deciding that they're going to survive.
Right, and then go on with your day.
Yeah,
just a slow start. So yeah, Corey, I think that'll pretty much wrap us up for today. I know we didn't have a specific agenda we wanted to talk to, but you're a fan favorite. Everybody loves Corey and his face. And everything about you. So I appreciate you hopping on.
Absolutely. I appreciate it.
Yeah, we'll see if we can get you on for season 3 or season 4, season 5, and have another story time with Corey.
All right, man.
Sounds good. Thanks a lot, guys. We'll see you next time.
Well, that's it for this week's episode of Beyond the Moon. Be sure to subscribe to this podcast on your favorite platform and follow us on social media @DitchWitch.